Your credit card can feel like a financial safety net. You swipe it, you get what you need, and you worry about the bill later. But here's the problem: not every purchase belongs on a credit card. Some charges can quietly turn into expensive debt, high interest, fees, or a financial problem that follows you for months or even years. And the scary part? Some of these purchases look completely normal. So today, we're breaking down 7 things you should think twice about putting on a credit card, and what you can do instead. Let's start with one that can become extremely expensive very quickly. Voiceover Part 2, Cash Advances. Number 1, Cash Advances. Imagine you need $500. You don't have enough cash in your checking account, so you use your credit card to get the money from an ATM. It feels convenient. But a cash advance can be one of the most expensive ways to borrow. Unlike a normal credit card purchase, cash advances can come with a separate fee, and interest can begin accruing immediately rather than giving you the typical purchase grace period. So that $500 you thought you needed temporarily can become much more expensive. And there's another psychological problem. When you take cash from your credit card, it's very easy to think, "I'll pay it back next paycheck." Then the next paycheck arrives, and something else happens. A car repair. A grocery bill. A utility payment. Suddenly, that temporary solution becomes revolving credit card debt. If you need emergency cash, look at your budget, emergency savings, or lower-cost borrowing options before reaching for a credit card cash advance. Number 2, rent or mortgage payments, especially when you're using a credit card simply because you don't have the cash. Your housing payment is one of your biggest monthly expenses. Putting it on a credit card may feel like you're buying yourself another few weeks. But unless you're using a legitimate payment service with a carefully calculated benefit, you could be trading one financial problem for another. For example, imagine your rent is $2,000. You put it on your card because money is tight. But now you have a $2,000 credit card balance. If you can't pay the statement in full, interest can start working against you. And if this happens month after month, your credit utilization can rise and your debt can snowball. There are situations where someone may intentionally use a card for rewards or a temporary cash flow strategy. But that only makes sense when the math works and the balance can be paid off. If you're charging rent because you can't afford the rent, that's a warning sign, not a strategy. Number 3, large medical bills you cannot realistically pay off. This one is emotional because nobody plans to get sick or injured. You get a medical bill for thousands of dollars. You panic. The provider offers a credit card payment option. And you think, at least I can put it on the card. But before you do that, stop. Ask whether the medical provider offers a payment plan. Ask whether there is financial assistance. Check the bill carefully for errors. And understand the terms of any financing option. Why? Because putting a large medical bill onto a high-interest credit card can transform a medical expense into long-term consumer debt. You don't want to pay interest for years on something that was already stressful enough. If the bill is legitimate and unavoidable, focus first on finding the lowest cost repayment option available. Number 4, taxes you cannot afford to pay. Let's say you owe the IRS $4,000. You don't have $4,000 sitting in your bank account. So you think, I'll just put it on my credit card. That may solve today's problem. But it doesn't necessarily solve the financial problem. You could now owe the credit card company thousands of dollars, potentially at a high interest rate, on top of any applicable processing fees. Before putting a large tax bill on a credit card, investigate your payment options. Depending on your situation, an official tax payment plan or another approved arrangement may be worth considering. The key lesson is simple. Don't use expensive debt to hide a cash flow problem. If you regularly owe more than you can comfortably pay, the real solution is to fix the system behind the problem: your withholding, estimated payments, income, spending, or overall tax planning. Number 5, gambling. This might be the most dangerous item on the list. Why? Because credit cards can make gambling losses feel less real. If you have $200 in your checking account, you know you're risking $200. But if you put the same activity on a credit card, it can feel like you're spending future money. And when someone loses, the temptation can become, "I'll just make it back." That is how a small loss can turn into a much larger debt problem. You don't want to borrow money to chase a loss. If gambling is part of your entertainment budget, only use money you've already decided you can afford to lose, and never use credit to try to recover previous losses. The moment borrowed money enters the equation, the risk changes dramatically. Number 6, impulse purchases you couldn't afford with cash. This one sounds simple, but it's incredibly common. You see the new phone, the expensive sneakers, the designer bag, the giant television, the vacation upgrade. And suddenly the credit card comes out. You tell yourself, "I deserve it." Maybe you do. But the question isn't whether you deserve something. The question is whether future you can comfortably afford it. A credit card can disconnect the pleasure of buying from the pain of paying. You get the product today. The bill comes later. So try this instead. For non-essential purchases, wait 24 hours. For larger purchases, wait a week. If you still want it and you've saved the money, go for it. But if you need a credit card because you don't have the cash, that's often a sign that the purchase should wait. Number 7, recurring subscriptions you aren't actively monitoring. This one doesn't usually create a massive bill overnight. That's exactly why it's dangerous. Think about all the subscriptions attached to a credit card. Streaming, fitness apps, software, cloud storage, news services, memberships, free trials that quietly became paid subscriptions. One subscription might cost $10. Another costs $15. Another $20. Individually, they don't seem important. But together, they can become hundreds of dollars every year. And because the payment happens automatically, you might not even notice. The credit card isn't necessarily the problem here. The problem is automating spending without reviewing it. Once every few months, go through your credit card statement line by line. Ask, "Did I use this? Do I still need it? Would I buy this again today?" If the answer is no, cancel it. Now let's step back. Notice something about all 7 examples. The credit card itself isn't always the villain. Credit cards can be useful financial tools when they're used responsibly. They can offer convenience, purchase protections, rewards, and, when balances are paid in full, potentially a relatively inexpensive way to manage everyday spending. The danger starts when the card becomes a substitute for money you don't actually have. That's the line you need to watch. A simple rule can help. If you couldn't comfortably afford the purchase without borrowing, pause before charging it. Before you swipe, ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1. Do I already have the money for this? Number 2. Will I be able to pay the credit card balance in full? And number 3. Would I still make this purchase if I had to pay for it today with cash? If the answer to any of those questions makes you uncomfortable, stop. You don't necessarily have to say no forever. You may simply need to wait. Saving first can completely change the experience. Instead of buying something and worrying about the bill later, you buy it knowing the money is already there. That's a very different kind of financial freedom. Let's say someone earns $5,000 a month. They put $3,500 of everyday expenses on a credit card. At the end of the month, they pay the full balance. That's one situation. Now imagine another person earns the same $5,000. They spend $3,500, but they only have $2,500 available to pay the card. So they carry the remaining balance. Then next month, they charge another $3,000. Now they're not just paying for this month's lifestyle. They're paying for the previous month's lifestyle too. That's how credit card debt can quietly grow. The problem usually isn't one giant purchase. It's the combination of spending today and borrowing from tomorrow. So what should you use instead? For everyday spending, use money you've already budgeted. For emergencies, build an emergency fund over time. For large purchases, save before buying whenever possible. For medical bills, investigate provider payment plans and assistance options. For taxes, investigate official payment arrangements and compare the total cost. And for wants? Give yourself permission to wait. Waiting isn't deprivation. Sometimes waiting is how you turn a purchase from a financial burden into something you can actually enjoy. Here's the part I want you to remember. A credit card doesn't create money. It gives you access to borrowed money. And borrowed money can be useful, but only when you understand the cost and have a realistic plan to repay it. The goal isn't to be afraid of credit cards. The goal is to make sure your credit card serves your financial plan instead of controlling it. Because financial freedom isn't about being able to buy everything you want. It's about being able to make choices without yesterday's purchases controlling tomorrow's paycheck. So, the 7 things you should think very carefully about putting on a credit card are: cash advances, unaffordable rent or housing payments, large medical bills you can't realistically repay, taxes you can't afford, gambling, impulse purchases, and recurring subscriptions you don't monitor. You don't have to eliminate credit cards from your life. You just need rules that protect you from turning convenience into expensive debt. If this video helped you think differently about your credit card, hit the like button. And if you want more simple, practical personal finance strategies designed to help you keep more of your money, subscribe to Roy Finance. Also, tell me in the comments. What's one credit card rule you personally follow? Your answer could help someone else avoid an expensive mistake. Remember, don't let a plastic card make decisions that your future self has to pay for. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.